Good afternoon, grade 12 learners. Welcome to this afternoon session of mathematical literacy. My name is Nikki Wezulu, and I am going to be your teacher for this afternoon. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with the Saibono Discovery Center. Girls and boys, I cannot believe that we are actually revising for our prelim paper that we are writing tomorrow, because it seems like just yesterday when we started this broadcasting lessons and we were doing financial documents in term 1, and here we are today talking last push, talking revision for your prelim exams. So for today's lesson, our main focus is going to be on the exam tips for the paper 1 that you guys will be writing tomorrow. And then also, I will also be tackling the possible exam questions that we can expect from tomorrow's paper. I've prepared your data handling questions, like calculating your median, your mean, your quartiles. Under finance, I've prepared your income and expenditure, your break-even analysis, taxation, tariff system, and the interest. I hope that we'll have enough time to cover all those stuff that I've prepared for this afternoon. Now, without any further waste of time, guys, tomorrow you are writing your paper 1, and these are the only 3 topics that you must expect in tomorrow's paper. I know most of you are always calling and asking, ma'am, what should we expect for paper 1? What should we expect for paper 2? So now I'm answering your question. These are the only 3 topics that are going to be in tomorrow's paper. So your finance will have a total mark of 90. Remember tomorrow's paper, the grand total for tomorrow's paper, it is out of 150. And this is for 3 hours. So out of this 150, 90 marks will be allocated towards your finance. And then for your data handling, we will have 53 marks that are allocated to your data handling. And then lastly, probability. For probability, we'll only have 7 marks. And then guys, don't be shocked in tomorrow's paper if you see the growth charts. Remember the growth charts, those ones when we're talking about percentiles, sometimes they can also be integrated with BMI. So this section, it can also be assessed in paper 1, because under data handling, we do have the section of percentiles, whereby we also work with the growth charts. So you can expect that as well. But the main topics, it is your finance, your data handling, and your probability. We all know that finance is a lot. It's a lot. That is why it carries about 90 marks out of 150 marks. And then this is now the structure of your paper for tomorrow. When you sit down, 10 to 9, when they say it's time to study, it's study time, you can study your question paper. This is what you're going to expect. Your question paper is going to have 4 or 5 questions. Most of the time it has 5 questions. And then each question contains more than 1 context. In MathsLit, when you talk about context, we're talking about stories. You know our subject is not like mathematics. Whenever there's a question asked, they will first give you a context. The context is more like a background. To say there is Mrs. Zulu, she is driving to place what, she wants to pour petrol in a car. That is context. That is what we are talking about when you talk about context. It's more like the story that will be given to you. So from that story, you must be able to extract the mathematics then. So question 1 to 3 will be based on familiar context. When you talk about familiar context, we talk about the things that you have been taught in class since term 1. When you talk about financial documents, being able to read the financial documents, reading the values, knowing what is an opening balance, knowing what is a closing balance. When you are given a table for the tariff system, and then you have to calculate the cost of using so many kiloliters of water. That is what your teachers have been taught. That is what we call familiar context. When you are given a set of data and you are asked to calculate the mean, you have been taught that. That is familiar context. So from question 1 to question 3, you guys must do exceptionally well, because it is everything that you have been taught from term 1 right up to the last day, which is today. And then unfamiliar context will only appear in question 4 and question 5. When you talk about unfamiliar context, it is still the things that you have learned, but now they're in a higher order. Like they are not obvious. The question will not be obvious to say, calculate the mean. No, instead, they will give you a set of data, and then in between, they will give you a letter, maybe the value of A. And then the examiner can say, if the mean is maybe 560, find the missing value of A. It means you now must think out of the box that they've given me the mean and then I have that set of data. It means I can use that mean value to find the missing value of A. That is what I mean by what? By unfamiliar context. That when you are given maybe a question on taxation, and then they say there is Mrs. Zulu, they give you the age of Mrs. Zulu, and then they tell you that Mrs. Zulu also contributes towards pension fund. So before you can calculate Mrs. Zulu's taxable income, you need to know that, oh, I need to subtract the non-taxable income. And in this case, the non-taxable income is what is the pension fund. So those items that are not straightforward, that you first have to think outside of the box, we call them unfamiliar context. And then lastly, there'll also be probability. Probability, there's no saying. You can find probability in question 1, you can find it in question 2, you can find it in question 3, question 4, up to question 5. So there's really no saying that where exactly are you going to find probability. So this is now the structure of your question paper, guys. Your question one is going to be out of 30 marks. But then there's a variance of plus minus 5 marks. So it can be out of 32, it can be out of 34, but most of the time it is out of 30 marks. And then question 1, it is your knowledge questions. It's things that you know. You don't even have to think about it. Guys, tomorrow, if you find yourself writing question 1 and you are scratching your head, you are stressed, then you must know that you are already on the wrong path. With question 1, you don't even have to think. It's either you know it or you don't. Examples of such questions, they can give you a graph. Let's say maybe it's a bar graph. And then they can ask you to identify the type of graph. So it's either you know the name of the graph or you don't. If you know the graph, you'll say that it is a histogram. Or if it's a bar graph, you'll say it's a bar graph. If it's a line graph, you'll say that it's a line graph. So it's either you know it or you don't. The examiner can ask you to explain the meaning of discrete data. Either you know what is discrete data or you don't. It's not something that you have to scratch your head on. Or they can give you a financial document, and then from the financial document, they can ask you what is the value of the opening balance. That is where you need to go to your financial document and read opening balance. There is the value. So that's why I'm saying that with question 1, it is your knowledge questions. Either you know it or you don't. Nothing to scratch your head about. And then with the topics that are going to be in question 1, you are going to find both finance and data handling under your question 1. They will be mixed. The other thing is that we can also find probability. So with question 1, you can find these 3 topics. Easiest. Question 1 is very easy, guys. Nice, short, and easy. And then your question 2, under question 2, you can expect finance. All the sections of finance will be asked again in question 2. So question 2, it just deals with finance only. Whereas your question 3, it deals with data handling only. Remember I said question 1, 2, and 3, it is familiar context. It is everything that you have been taught. There's nothing new there. There are no surprises. And then you have your question 4 and your question 5. Question 4 and question 5, they are integrated. When I talk about integration, I mean that you are going to find a finance question in question 4 and find a data handling question in question 4. So the questions are mixed up together. Even with question 5, you are going to find finance and data handling mixed up together. So that is what I mean by integrated. The topics here are integrated. And remember, for question 4 and 5, it is your higher order type of questions. Under finance, I told you when I started that finance is big. There are so many subsections under finance. That is why I always get so surprised when learners are panicking because they cannot do taxation. Taxation is not mislead, guys. Taxation is not finance. It is just a small section of finance. Do you see how many topics we have here under finance? We've got 10 topics 10 topics under finance, and then taxation is one of those topics. So the topics that we must know, it is your financial documents. You must know your taxation, your tariffs, income and expenditure, cost price and selling price, the break-even analysis, interest, banking, loans and investment, inflation, and lastly, your exchange rates. So all these are the topics that fall under finance that are going to be assessed in tomorrow's paper. Remember, with you guys, the structure of the question paper has changed since last year. So the examiner is only assessing on 2 topics, meaning that the examiner actually has an allowance of assessing all these topics in one question paper. So all these topics, they are going to be assessed in tomorrow's paper. I hope after today's session, you will have a clear or a better understanding of what is it that you need to prepare for tomorrow's paper. So the terminology that is involved under all the sections of finance, guys, I know you all have the glossary of terms in your classwork book. So please go back to that glossary and revise all these words and make sure that you understand them. You must know what is meant by a balance. You must know what is meant by break-even point. The examiner loves this question. In the moment they give you those 2 graphs, they will ask you to explain what you understand by the word break-even. You must know when you talk about gross income, what are we talking about? It is income before any deductions. You must know when you talk about a tariff, what is the meaning of tariff? UIF, what does the acronym UIF stand for? When you talk about opening balance, what do you mean? What is a balance brought forward? You must know that opening balance and balance brought forward, same WhatsApp group. They mean the same thing. It depends on the statement, which word they are using. You must know what is a closing balance. You must know that when you are given a bank statement or an account statement, the credit on the statement indicates money that is coming in, whereas the debit indicates the money that is coming out. Some of the statements, they will indicate with the positive and the negative sign. You will know that if it's positive, it means money is coming in. Whereas if it is negative, money that is being taken out, or the money that has been withdrawn. So girls and boys, please tonight do look through your terminologies, revise them, because they are examinable. The examiner can ask you, what do you understand by a net pay? What do you understand by payee? Pay SUN. It's actually a tax that is charged to the people that are, to the individuals that are earning an income. So the first topic under finance, it is your financial documents. We did financial documents at the beginning of the year, and there are so many financial documents. We've got invoices, we've got cell phone statements, we've got till slips, we've got bank statements, we've got salary advice or a pay slip. The other word for pay slip is salary advice. So the nicest thing about a question with financial document is that they give you a document, and that document has all the information. Before you even go and attempt the questions, read through that document, make sure that you understand all the values and how the values were calculated. And as soon as there's an alphabet in your financial documents on the numbers, then you find the letter A or B or C, you must definitely know that the examiner is going to ask you to find the value of that A, or the value of that B, or the value of that C. So you must look out for all the important things: the date which that statement was issued, the monthly installment, the balance brought forward, the closing balance, the credit amounts, the debit amounts. You must look out for all those values. So you must be able to read information directly from the financial documents. Taxation. Under taxation, the first part of taxation, it is UIF and VAT. Guys, you must know what UIF stand for. UIF stand for what? Unemployment Insurance Fund. So it's an unemployment insurance fund. This is a fund that is set up by the government to allow the people and the employees to contribute towards it. The main purpose of contributing towards UIF is so that if maybe you go on maternity leave or you are sick, you cannot work anymore, you are able to receive money from the fund. But the money is not forever. You'll only receive the money for a period of 6 months. So as an employer, as an employee, myself, a worker, I'm an employee. It means now I need to contribute 1% towards the fund. And then my employee, the person, my employer, the person who hired me, will also contribute 1% towards the fund. And then in total, the total value that goes towards the fund, it is 2%. 1% from myself, 1% from my employer. When you combine it at the fund, it gives you 2%. So you must also know the difference between employer and employee. Don't be like me. Don't make this mistake that I'm making now. You must know who is the employer. The employer is the one that hired me. And then you must know who's the employee. The employee is myself, who is the worker. Like myself, as I'm sitting here, I am the employee of the Department of Education. And the Department of Education is my employer. Know the difference between the two. And then we've got VAT, guys, another pandemic. You must know the meaning of the acronym VAT. VAT stands for what? It is your value added tax. That is the meaning of VAT. It's value added tax. And then what you must also know is that VAT is calculated at what percentage? At 15%. The examiner can ask you, what does the acronym VAT stand for? You must know that it is value added tax. Or the examiner can ask you, at what percentage is the VAT calculated? You must know that VAT is calculated at 15%. And then when you're going to be working with financial documents, you are definitely going to be asked to calculate the VAT amount or to show how the VAT amount of a certain value was calculated. So I normally use this formula to help me when I'm working with value with the VAT. So my VAT formula is VAT equals to the amount that is given, multiply by the percentage that I want, divide by the percentage that I have. What am I talking about? Let's put that into practice. Here in this table, we've got the VAT exclusive amount. The VAT exclusive amount means the amount is at its original state. It hasn't been touched, it's got nothing. So that amount is at 100%. When you talk about VAT amount, we know that we said VAT amount is calculated at 15%. And then lastly, we've got the VAT inclusive. The VAT inclusive is the money that is already inclusive of the VAT. So how did we get this VAT inclusive amount? We said the VAT exclusive amount, the original amount, which is 100%, plus the VAT amount. The VAT amount is 15%, and it gave us what? It gave us 115%. That is where the 115% is coming from. So the amount that we have, it is 1,000. And this 1,000, it is VAT exclusive. Let's say they want us to calculate the VAT inclusive amount. If we want the VAT inclusive amount using this formula, it's going to be the amount given. What is the amount given? It is 1,000 rand multiplied by the percentage that we want. I said I want what? VAT inclusive. So what is the percentage for VAT inclusive? It is 115%. Over what? The percentage that I have. I have the VAT exclusive, and what is the percentage for VAT exclusive? It is 100%. So it is over 100. Now, if I want to calculate, I will take the 1,000. Guys, always have your calculators with you. 1,000 multiplied by 115 divided by 100 to give me the answer of 1,150. So this is my amount inclusive of VAT. So with this table, guys, with this table and with this formula, it will always tell you when to divide by 115, when to multiply by 115, when to divide by 100, or when to multiply by 15 over 100. So if you find this easier, I hope you are copying it and then you give it further practice tonight, because definitely there is no way that you will write a paper 1 and you are not required to calculate an amount inclusive of VAT, or they don't ask you to show how a certain amount of VAT was calculated. And then we've got taxation, your income tax, guys. With income tax, the most important rule that you must remember is that all your values must be in annual formats. With income tax, we work with values that are annual, in annual format, nothing monthly. So that is step number 1. And then step number 2, you must know how to calculate your non-taxable income. Some of you call it a non-taxable deduction. It doesn't really matter. So you've got your non-taxable income or your non-taxable deductions, which are UIF, your pension fund. Sometimes it will be given as GEPF, Government Employees Pension Fund. So sometimes it will be given as GEPF. You must know what it means. And then also if a person is contributing towards donations. So if they're giving you a scenario to say there is Mrs. Zulu, she's so many years old and she earns this amount of money, and then these are deducted from her salary. As soon as you see these guys, then you know that before you can calculate my tax, you must first subtract these 3 values. You cannot tax me on those values. You must subtract them. And then once you've calculated your non-taxable income, then now you can calculate your annual taxable income. What is your taxable income? It is that income that you are going to use now to calculate my tax, to charge me on the tax that I must pay. So this is the value that you use when you go to the tax rate table to decide if I fall under bracket 1, bracket 2, or bracket 3. That value that you use, we call it a taxable income. And then you would have identified your tax bracket. You substitute into the tax bracket formula. Always rewrite the tax bracket. You rewrite it as it is, that formula. And in the second step, you substitute. And then, guys, you must know how to calculate your rebates. What are the rebates again? The rebates is that special discount that is given to the taxpayers. It is a special discount that is given to all the taxpayers. So every time after calculating a person's tax, at the end, you must always remember to say minus the rebates. And then the rebates that a person will receive, they will depend on the age of the person. If I am below 65 years old, everyone that is below everyone that is paying tax qualifies for the primary rebate. The primary rebate is the first block of the rebate. So everyone that pays tax qualifies for that. But as soon as you reach 65, then you qualify for the second rebate, which we call the secondary rebate. So it means if you are 65, now you qualify for 2 rebates. And then if you are 75 and older, you qualify now for a tertiary rebate, meaning that you'll be getting 3 discounts. You'll be getting a primary rebate, a secondary rebate, and a tertiary rebate, which gives you 3 discounts. And then if a taxpayer is a member of a medical aid, you must know how to calculate the medical tax credits. With the medical tax credits table, the credits are always given in a monthly format. So because with tax, I said we work with annual formats. You must know that after calculating that monthly format, you must now convert it into the annual format. Sometimes the examiner will be nice and tell you to say calculate the monthly medical aid tax credits or the annual medical tax credits. But sometimes the examiner won't even mention it. You must know that when you are calculating tax and they mentioned that a person also pays for medical aid, you must know that you need to calculate the tax credits and then they must be annual. You don't calculate it as monthly and you leave them there. You must know. But for you guys to calculate the medical tax credits, they will tell you, the examiner will tell you if a person contributes towards medical aid or not. It's not something that you have to think by yourself. They will always tell you. If they don't say anything about medical aid, then you ignore it. It means it doesn't exist. But with the rebates, it's compulsory. You must always subtract the rebates after calculating an individual's tax. And then tariff systems, guys, we've got 5 types of tariffs that we can expect in the exam. We've got water tariffs, we've got electricity, there is transport or parking, there is telephone or cell phone, and lastly there is banking tariffs. The only tariffs that has a specific way of calculating them are your water and electricity. These ones you cannot bypass them. If they give you that table for water and electricity, there's a specific way, there's a specific method that you must use to calculate them. I am going to show you this afternoon. I've got one example, but with the rest, with the transport, telephone, and banking, it depends on the information that is given to you at that particular time. So this is not something that you can say for transport, telephone, and banking. It's not something that you can say I'm practicing them, that because if they are asked, I must be able to know how to answer them. This one, you just need to make sure that you read with understanding, because most of these ones you have to come up with your own formula. For example, with transport, tomorrow they can give you a different scenario to say learners from a certain secondary school are embarking on a school trip. So the person where they need to hire a bus for the learners. So the bus company is charging them a fixed charge, a fixed amount of 2,000 rands. And thereafter, they are charging them maybe, let's say, 350 per kilometer. So if you have to come up with the formula, you have to read with understanding and create your own formula. And then the same with telephone and cell phone. With cell phone, remember, we've got 2 types, 2 options. There is the prepaid option. We also have what? We also have the contract option. So this one, it depends on the scenario that you are given. They can say there is MTN. MTN is charging its customers that are on prepaid, maybe let's say 150 per minute for using phone calls. That is for prepaid customers. And then come up with the formula for that. If you have to do a formula, you will say, okay, the prepaid cost, they say MTN is charging how much? 150. 150 per minute. So you say 150 multiply by n. This is the formula that we can use, where n stands for the number of minutes. Sometimes a person can be on contract. With the contract option, again, they will give you information. With the contract option, it means this person has the monthly payments that they are making. And then they can tell you that there is Mem Zulu. She has a contract with MTN. And then on her contract, she has a monthly subscription fee of maybe, let's say, 300 rand. So there's a monthly subscription fee of 300 rand. And then thereafter, MTN is charging her 1 rand per minute that is spent on phone calls. So come up with a formula that Mem Zulu can use to calculate the cost if she is on contract. So if I want the cost for contract, I will say the contract cost equals to a fixed charge. The moment that they tell you that there's a fixed charge on your formula, you always start with your fixed charge. So you will say it is 300 plus. So with the fixed charge, it is always the fixed charge plus. So it is the fixed charge plus. I said how much are they charging me per minute? They are charging me 1 rand multiplied by n, where n represents the number of minutes. You can put it inside the brackets if you want to. And sometimes, guys, with the contract, there's also an option of 3 minutes. So if there's an option of 3 minutes, it means now in your formula here, you must first subtract the 3 minutes that are given, and then you can calculate the cost of whatever number of minutes that have been used in that particular option. So please do go and practice your water tariffs, your electricity, and also your cell phone tariffs, so that you can see when you talk about prepaid, how do we do the calculations for prepaid, and how do we do the calculations for contract. And then lastly, we've got the banking tariffs. The best thing about the banking tariffs is that you will be given the fee structures, you will be given the formulas that a certain bank is using to charge the customers. So with this one, again, it is something that you will face when you come across it, when you see it. They'll always give you formulas that to say, okay, for this one, this is the formula that bank A is using to charge. So you use whatever formula that the bank is using to calculate the charges. So you don't have to memorize it, but do go and revise your water, electricity, and cell phones. And then, guys, we've got the section of income and expenditure. This is actually a big section, and you guys undermine it because you are always focusing on tariffs and taxation. Income and expenditure is a huge topic. You must know the difference between income and expenditure. And you must also know that we've got different types of income, we've got different types of expenditure or expenses. There is fixed income. When you talk about a fixed income, like something that is fixed, it doesn't change. It stays that way forever. It doesn't change. So when you talk about a fixed income, we are referring to that income that stays the same on a regular basis or on a monthly basis. A perfect example of a fixed income, guys, it is a salary. For example, my salary, every month I'm expecting the same amount of money. It doesn't change. Whether we are on lockdown or not, month end, my salary stays the same. So this type of income is called an example of what? Of a fixed income. And then we also have a fixed expense. It is those expenses that stays the same on a regular basis. An example of this, it can be rent. If maybe you are running a business and you are renting a place, it means every month you had an agreement with your landlord that every month you must pay 800 for rent. So that 800 rent becomes your fixed expenditure. It doesn't change. Whether you were open this month or not, because you signed a contract that every month I must pay 800, therefore you are going to pay that 800 rent at the end of the month. Then we've got what we call variable income or expense. Variable means it fluctuates. It doesn't stay the same on a regular basis. This month it can be high, next month it can be low, the other month it can be just in between, but it never stays the same. An example of variable income, it is people that are earning on commission. What am I referring to? Most of this happens to people that are in retail, people in furniture shops, people that are selling cars, people that are selling houses. If you are selling cars, you get paid on commission. Commission means that you will be paid depending on the number of cars that you have sold. If this was your good month and you were able to sell as many cars as possible, it means you are going to get paid more. But if it was a quiet month, people didn't have money, they didn't buy that much, maybe only one person came to buy a car, it means now you'll be paying according to the number of cars. So you'll be paid little for that particular month. So variable income, the income, it fluctuates. The example of that, it is what it is, commission. We also have variable expenses. These are the expenses that don't stay the same. They fluctuate. This month I'm spending more. Next month I'm spending less. A perfect example of your variable expense, it could be transport, or the money that I spend on transport or on petrol. With the petrol prices going up and down, it means whatever money that I'm spending on petrol will never ever stay the same. And then, guys, we've got occasional income or occasional expenses. It's self-explanatory. Occasional, it means it happens once in a while. An example of occasional income, guys, it's a bonus. For us, especially the people that are working for the department, we only get a bonus once a year. Then that's it. You will not get your bonus every month. It doesn't work like that. Another example that I'm thinking of is inheritance. Let's say you had a rich grandmother and she left you a lump sum of inheritance. That is only going to happen once. That is why we are saying it is occasional income. And then we also have occasional expenses, those expenses that happens once in a while. For example, if I leave here after the broadcasting and my car breaks down, it means now I need to spend money to fix that car. So it's not something that happens on a regular basis. It's something that happens once in a while. So if my car is going to break every month, it's no longer an occasional expense, and it means I don't have a car anymore. I must actually sell that car. So for occasional expense, we can say, for example, fixing a broken car or a burst geyser. You know, sometimes you go to work, everything is normal, you go to school, and then boo boo boo, out of the blue, during the day, a geyser has burst, there's water all over the house. It means you're going to need to pay to repair that geyser, also to sort out the mess that has been caused by the water in the house, which is an expense, but it is an occasional expense. It's not something that happens on a regular basis. When you are given a statement, guys, you must know how to identify the income amount on the table that is given. You must also know how to identify the expenditure or the expenses on the statement that you'll be working with. And you must know that if you've got your income and then you subtract your expenses, if your answer is positive, it means that you are making a profit. But if you've got your income and then you subtract your expense, but your answer is negative, then it means you are running at a what? At a loss, or you are running at a deficit. So income minus expenditure, when it's positive, there's profit, we are happy. Income minus expenditure, negative, it means there is a loss. Sometimes you can say income minus expenditure, then it gives you 0, meaning there is no profit, there is also no loss. And then you must be ready, guys. You are in grade 12 now. Be prepared to work with big numbers. You must know that million means what? You multiply by 1 and 6 zeros. The examiner can give you 3.7 M. And then they say write this as a whole or write this as a number. This is million. So you must know to convert this from this to a proper number, you have to multiply with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This conversion factor, the examiner will not give it to you. You are expected to know it. You are in grade 12. Million means 1 with 6 zeros. A billion means 1 with 9 zeros. And then also the smallest ones like the hundreds. You must know that 100 means 1 with 2 zeros. 1,000, 1 with 3 zeros. And you must know the same with 10,000 and 100,000 to know how many zeros are involved. And then you will see this mostly when you are given a budget statement. And then on the statement of the budget, they give you the values. Maybe they give you 2, 2, 3, and they say on top that these values are in thousands. So if it's in thousands, you must know that you need to take this 2, 2, 3 and multiply by 1 with 3 zeros to get the proper or the actual value. And then the cost price, selling price, and the break-even analysis. You must know which one is the cost and which one is the selling price from the given context. When you talk about cost price, guys, I've realized that most of the grade 12 learners don't have calculators. So what I did, I went to China Mall to stock up on calculators. So when I go to China Mall to stock the calculators, they sold me one calculator for 50 rands. They sold it to me for 50 rands. I got to my school and I sold these calculators for 75 rand each. I bought one for 50 rands and I'm selling it for 75 rands. So in this case, my cost price would be what? The 50 rands, because it cost me 50 rands to buy this calculator. Whereas my selling price, the price that I'm selling it to you guys, I'm selling it for how much? For 75 rands. So know the difference between the cost and the selling price. And you must also know the difference between a profit and a loss. I think I explained this in the previous slide. Guys, then we have a break even point or break-even analysis. This we know when we have two graphs. We've got two graphs. Let me say this side is your toys and this side is the amount. And then here I've got 100 rands. And then here we've got 0. Normally you would have two graphs like this. So you've got graph A and graph B. These graphs, guys, they are not labeled. They are not labeled. I mean, yes, they don't have the names. So what the examiner can do, the examiner can ask you to label the graphs A and B. When you talk about break-even analysis, we're talking income and expenditure. So it means one of these two graphs is your income, one of these two graphs is your expenditure or your expenses graph. So how do you know which one is which? Your graph that starts at 0, that graph that starts at 0 will always represent your income graph. Why? Because it starts at 0, 0, meaning that if you sell 0 toys, you will get 0 amount. If you don't sell anything, you will not get any income. That is why the graph that starts at 0, 0 will always be our income graph. Whereas this other graph is starting there at 100 rands. This 100 rands, it means that it is a fixed cost that is paid by this business. It could be, remember I said examples of fixed cost, it could be the money that this business is paying for rent. So before they sell any toys or before they can decide how much they are spending on toys, they must make sure that this 100 rand is paid. So this 100 rand, we call it a fixed amount or a fixed cost. So this graph, because it starts there, not at 0, then this graph will definitely be our expenditure or our expenses graph. I hope you guys understand. And then we've got a point where these two graphs meet. This is a point where we are saying that this business is not making any profit, is not making any loss. What do we call this point? It is the break-even point. So the examiner will ask you, what is the meaning of break-even? You will say break-even means that a business is not making profit, a business is not making a loss. Or you can say it is a point where income and expenses of a business are the same. No profit, no loss, they are all the same. And then here, guys, at this point here, at this point that I'm shading now, this is a point whereby this business is actually running at a loss. They're not making any profit. Why am I saying it's running at a loss? Because your expenditures are more than your income. You see your income graph is right here at the bottom, and then your expenditure graph is right there on top, meaning at this point this business is running at a what? At a loss. And then when we get to 50 toys, this is where now this business is starting to break even. To break even means what? Income and expenditure are the same. And we see that with this where they meet. And then after the break-even point, guys, immediately after the break-even point, that is where now the business is starting to make a profit. So the business is starting to grow, because that is where now we see the income being more than the expenditure, or the income being more than the expenses. So the question that the examiner can ask here, the examiner can ask you, how many toys must be sold to break even? How many toys must be sold to break even? 15 toys. Or the examiner can ask you, how many toys must be sold to start making profit? When do we start making profit? Immediately after 50 toys. Then we'll start seeing profit. It doesn't matter how little it is. Immediately after 50 toys, we'll start seeing our profit. So after 50, what is the next value after 50, guys? It is exactly 51. So how many toys must be sold to start making profit? It is 51 toys. And then we've got interest and banking. Yo, guys, I'm sure you forgot this section. People, you must know the difference between interest and your interest rate. Remember, what is interest? It is the extra amount that is earned on the money that has been invested. That is, if you are investing. Or it is the extra money that is charged on the money that has been borrowed, depending on the context that you are dealing with. And these days, the examiners like to say, explain interest in the given context. So if they are talking about someone that is investing, then you will say interest, it is the extra money earned when the money has been invested. If they're talking about someone that's borrowing a money, taking a loan, then you will say that interest is the extra money that is charged on money that has been borrowed. That is the two ways in which you can explain interest. And then interest rate. With interest rate, because of the word rate here, our keyword, we are looking for the keyword percentage. So interest rate, it is the extra percentage amount that is charged on the money that has been borrowed, or the extra percentage amount that has been earned on the money that has been invested. The explanation is almost the same. It's just with this one, you must emphasize percentage. Percentage is your keyword. If you give the explanation without percentage, unfortunately, you can't be awarded marks because now you have explained what? Interest. And then you must be able to perform calculations for simple and compound interest. Guys, in Mathlead, we are not allowed to use simple and compound interest formulas. So you must know how to do it manually. You must know how to calculate your simple interest step by step. You must know how to calculate your compound interest step by step. I'm going to show you. I have an example on this one. And then you must also, guys, know the meaning of hire purchase. When we talk about hire purchase, what are we talking about? Hire purchase, it is the system of buying items on credit and paying for them in monthly installments. So it's like you buy something that you cannot afford. The shop allows you to keep that item. And then, or there's a certain contract that you sign, but you need to pay an upfront deposit. And then from there, you will pay the installments in monthly amounts. You pay the monthly installments of that particular item. That's why we say it is a hire purchase. You are purchasing, but you are actually hiring it. So it's not yours until you pay the full amount. Once the full amount has been paid, then you can own it. Then you can say it is my item, I own it. Example, buying a car. You saw this beautiful Mercedes car that you want to buy, but you cannot afford to buy it cash. So you go to the dealership, you complete the contract that, okay, they say at least give us a deposit. You put down a deposit, you take the car, then every month there's a certain amount that you pay. But remember now, that money now would be inclusive of interest. They would have charged you interest. Unlike when you buy it cash, there's no interest. But if you buy it on hire purchase, then they are adding interest. You must know your residual payment and your balloon payment, and also to work with the home loans. Remember, with the home loans, they'll normally give you the formula to calculate the loan factor, or how much a person would have paid after 20 years or after 30 years. But you don't have to stress because they give you the formula. Yours is just to substitute into that given formula. And then inflation and exchange rates, guys, you must know a definition of inflation. What is inflation? It is the general increase in the prices of goods and services. Done. You are done. You are done. You don't have to explain it even further. So inflation, the general increase in the prices of goods and services. And I think now we are living in those times whereby the inflation rate is just crazy. Everything is just way super expensive. If you can compare now the amount of money that we paid last year, this time for a 2-liter cooking oil, we paid around 40 rands. But today, if you go to the same shop buying the same brand of cooking oil, you are going to pay 100 rands. So there's a huge increase in the price of cooking oil, and that is due to what? That is due to inflation. And we've also seen the increase in the prices of petrol due to what? Due to inflation. And you must know that with inflation, the calculations for inflation, we calculate it the same way that we calculate compound interest. They can give you the price of bread for 2019, and then they give you the price of bread for 2020 and their percentage increases. And then they want you to calculate the price of, to predict the price of bread for 2021. So you must know that when you perform those calculations, you perform them the same way that you would do your compound interest. And then another thing again that you must know with inflation, you must know your percentage change formula. Remember your percentage change, guys. You guys should know this. You've been doing this in grade 12. It is the new value minus the old value divided by the old value multiplied by 100. This is when they want the inflation rate. They remember the word rate means it's a percentage. So here they would have told you that a loaf of bread in 2021 was 12 rands. Now a loaf of bread in 2022 is how much? Is 21 rands. Calculate the percentage change or the inflation rate. So the new price of the bread now, we said is 21 minus the old price. I said it was how much? It was 12 rands divided by the old price, 12 rands, and then you multiply by 100, and then you will get your answer as a percentage. So this formula, you are expected to know it by heart. And then guys, you must know your exchange rates. Remember what are exchange rates? It is basically the worth of one currency in comparison to another currency. If I've got my South African rands, and then I want to know how much would those South African rands worth in comparison to a Botswana pula. Then when we compare them, the different currencies, that process, we call it what? We call it the exchange rates. And then you must also know when they're talking about your weak currency, what are they referring to? When they talk about a strong currency, what are we referring to? The nicest thing about the exchange rates, guys, you don't have to know them by heart. They will always give you the exchange rate for that those currencies that they want you to work with. If they want you to convert between dollars and pounds, they will give you the exchange rates between dollars and pounds. So you look out for exchange rates. They'll definitely be there. Inflation definitely be there. So you must know how to explain them. You must also know how to perform calculations on inflation and exchange rates. That is for your finance. That is all your finance. When you say that you are ready, you've done finance, you should have done all these sections. And now the second part of paper 2, it is your data handling. Guys, with data handling, we've got these 6 steps that are involved in the data handling process. Last year final exam, they asked learners, I don't remember, they wanted them to give the 2 steps that are involved in data handling, or was it 3? But you must know in data handling, we've got these 6 steps. The first part is developing questions. After you've developed questions, then you can collect your data. After collecting your data, classify and organize it, summarize it, represent it, and finally analyze and interpret your data. So these are the 6 steps that are involved in the data handling process. So you must know these 6 steps. They can be asked in the exam. So the terminology, the same with finance. I said you must make sure that tonight you go and revise your finance terminologies. With the data handling, I know you have the glossary of terms for for data handling. So please make sure that you go and study them. You must know when you talk about outliers, what are we referring to? When you talk about an outlier, we talk about a value that stands out above the rest, like it's unique. A perfect example right now in your classrooms, you are with your teacher. All of you, these learners, your age group, they range between 17, 18, 19. 17, 18, 19. And then you've got your teacher that is 45 years old. So your teacher's age, that 45, it then becomes what? It becomes an outlier. If all of you are wearing school uniform, and then you've got Palesa there in class, she had some issues, so she couldn't wear her uniform. She's wearing civis. So Palesa is going to become what? An outlier, because she stands out amongst the rest of you. All of you are wearing school uniform, but Palesa is wearing civis. So that is what is meant by an outlier. It is a value that stands out amongst the rest of the values. Guys, you must know what is meant by continuous data. You must know what is meant by discrete data, your categorical data, numerical data. When they say that a question is biased, what does it mean? When they say a question is biased, it means this question, it actually favors a certain group of people than the others, or it discredits a certain type a group of people than the others. Then such a question, we say that it is biased. You know, you guys always accuse us in our class, ma'am, you are biased. When you want our opinion, then we answer, ma'am, you are biased. When even us, we'd always ask you guys, how do I look today? Then obviously you say, ma'am, you look pretty. And I say, guys, you are biased. Of course, you'll say that because I'm your teacher and you love me. So make sure that you know all these terminologies, guys, because they are examinable. You can be asked tomorrow to explain one of them. So you must be ready. And then I said we've got 6 steps in the process of data handling. So the first part is on developing questions. When you develop questions, the phrasing of your questions, it determines the way in which your data will be collected, organized, and classified. The most important thing, you need to make sure that your questions are not biased. So they must be unbiased. Remember, I said biased means favoring a certain type of group rather than the rest. So your questions must not be biased if you are going to develop questions to conduct your experiment. And then the second part is collecting data. You must know the data collection instruments or the data collection methods. These were also asked in last year's final paper 1. So the different data collection methods that we have is your questionnaire, interview, observation, and your database. Guys, for example, with questionnaire, remember those days of COVID? Before you could enter the school, you had to complete a questionnaire, whereby we wanted to know as a school if you have any symptoms of COVID, if you have headache, if you have fever, if you've been exposed to anyone that tested positive in the last 14 days. So as you guys were ticking yes, no, some of you were even lying. That tool that we are completing, we call it what? We call it a questionnaire. And then the second instrument or method is an interview. If at your school you are in need of a maths lit teacher, your principal wants to hire a maths lit teacher, and then he's got different people that submitted their information, their CVs. So if the principal wants to get more information to determine if he has good candidates or not, he'll have to conduct what? An interview, so that he can get it from the horse's mouth how well those people are, and so that he can see if it's the people that he can trust with his learners. The third instrument, it is your observation. If I wanted to know this morning how many of you were late for today's economics exam, I can ask you that. You guys are going to lie to me. You'll all say, ma'am, we're on time. So the best way for me to get the answer is to do an observation. So I can come to your school and sit with the chair at the gate, and then I can observe how many learners actually arrived after 7:30. So everyone that arrived after 7:30, I will record them under late. So for me, if I want to get that type of data, I can use the process of observation. The last method, which is database, if I wanted to know, guys, your June performance in Maths Lit, how did the grade 12 learners perform in Maths Lit in June? That information is there, it's available, it's accessible. I'll have to go through what to the database. I'll go to an admin school, then they'll open their database for me, and then I can get that information on how was the learners' performance for June Maths Lit exam. Or if I wanted to know how many grade 12 learners have registered to sit for mathematical literacy in the province, that information is accessible. I can get that information from a database. So these, you must know them, guys, the data collection instruments or the data collection method. The examiner can give you a scenario and say, maybe Mrs. Zulu wanted to see how many learners arrive late for school on a daily basis. So what data collection instrument can she use? You must say that she can use what? Observation. Or ma'am wanted to know how many learners are actually prepared for their exam paper that they're writing tomorrow. I can use two options. I can use a questionnaire where people remain anonymous. The best thing about questionnaire is that you can remain anonymous. You don't have to write a name, meaning you can be as honest as possible. Or another option, I can use interviews. I can interact with you and ask you face to face, guys, how prepared are you? Are you ready? Any challenges that you are expecting? All that. So these are the data collection instruments or the data collection methods. Then once the data has been collected, you now need to classify your data. When you classify your data, it can be classified as categorical or numerical. What is categorical data? It expresses information in the form of grouping. Example, if you classify your data in terms of colors, in your class, how many people are wearing yellow? How many people are wearing white? Or the green this side, the purple this side, the pink this side. So I'm classifying in terms of what? In terms of color. That is categorical data. So it's all about grouping. If I wanted to sort out the types of cars at the parking lot, Toyotas this side, Mercedes this side, BMs this side, Ford this side, Mazda's this side. I'm classifying them in the groups, in the makes of different cars. And then we've got numerical data. This one is self-explanatory. This one, it expresses information in the form of what? In the form of numbers. So any data that's got numbers, it is what it is, numerical. And then you must also remember that numerical can now be divided into two sections. It can be classified as discrete, can also be classified as continuous. Guys, this part that I'm doing now is very, very important, and it's definitely going to be in the exam. They can ask you to explain or give an example of categorical data, explain or give an example of numerical data, discrete data, or continuous data. When you talk about discrete data, what are we referring to again? Discrete data, guys, it is data that you obtain through counting. If you have to count to get that data, then that data becomes discrete data. If I want to know the number of learners in a classroom, I have to physically count them to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So me doing that counting, that makes the data to be what? To be discrete. So if ever in the exam they ask you to give you an example of discrete data, we can just say it is the number of learners. But if they want you to explain it, then we can say that it is the data that is obtained through counting. Then we've got what? Continuous data. What is continuous data? It is the data that is obtained through measuring. The fact that you have to measure for you to get that data, it makes the data to be continuous. Right now, if I wanted to know what time it is, I can't guess that. I will need to look at the watch, meaning that I'm using watch to measure time for me. So if I'm using a watch, it tells me that it's 3 o'clock now. I know it's a whole number, but because I had to use a watch to get that, that makes time to be what time is continuous. So example of continuous data is time. If I wanted to know how big I am, I've gained a lot of weight, so I just wonder how big I am, how much do I weigh? I can't guess my weight. I will need to climb on top of a bathroom scale and check my weight, and this is how much I weigh. So that weight, because I had to use a scale to get it, that makes weight to be what? That makes weight to be continuous data. If I wanted to know how tall I am, I'll have to get a measuring tape and measure my height. The fact that I have to measure it, it makes it what? It makes it continuous data. So you must know the difference between discrete and continuous. You must know your categorical. You must know your numerical. And then guys, when you organize your data, you can organize or arrange it in ascending or in descending order. Normally the examiners, they like to ask that question to say arrange the following data in ascending order, or they can say arrange the following data in descending order. You must know that when you talk ascending, from A are moving up. So ascending means from the smallest value to the biggest value, whereas descending, D for down, we are going from the biggest value to the smallest value. And then please go and revise your frequency and tally tables. This is a very easy section of data handling. You've been doing this from grade 8. Remember, when you do our tallies, when you do your tallies, is 1 2 3, and then as a number you write 3. If it's 5, it's 1 2 3 4 4 5, then this means it's 5. If it's a 7, it will be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, meaning that this is a 7. So go and revise your tally tables. If it's in the exam, this is normally around 5 or 6 marks for free. Very easy part of data handling. And then guys, the next step now is summarizing your data. When we summarize our data, we summarize our data using the measures of central tendency. What are the measures of central tendency? It is your mode, it's your median, and it is your mean. What is mode, guys? Mode. It is the value that appears the most. That appears the most. Most of you get confused in the exam. When they say calculate mode, you calculate mean. When they want mean, you calculate median. So what this should help you to remember that mode, we say it is the most appearing value. So both of them, they've got mo. Then you know that if they say most, they want what? The most appearing. So if you look at our data set here, when we are given a data set, always make sure that your data set is arranged. Always, guys. So here is our data set. It is arranged. So what is the value that appears the most there? I think this is obvious for all of us. It is what it is, 13. Sometimes, guys, you've got two values that are appearing the most. If you've got two values that are appearing the most, you write both of them. Both of them would be your mode. Let's say here there was another 31. It means our answer now, the mode, would be what? It would be 31 and 33 if we had an additional 31. If you have three values that are appearing the most, you write those three values as your mode. Sometimes you won't have a mode at all. There's no mode. Then you will write that there is no mode. You don't write 0, because when you write 0, you are saying that 0 appears the most. So if there is no mode, you just write in words no mode, and then you leave it there. And then we've got the median. Guys, you can never ever calculate the median without arranging your data. So before you calculate your median, make sure that your data is arranged. And what is the median? Median, it is the middle value of an arranged data. That is how you explain median. If you just say median is the middle value, you will get only 1 mark. But if you say median is the middle value of an arranged data, then you will get your 2 marks. So here is our data. How many values do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if we've got 10, the values that are in the middle is 29 and 31. So when we've got two values for the median, we will say now this is 29 plus 31 divided by 2, which is equals to 60 divided by 2, which is equals to 30, meaning that our median is actually 30. I know there are some of you geniuses that could tell already here that the median would be 30, because the number between 29 and 31 is 30. But the others that are like me, that wants to see it, do it step by step, this is how you would do it. If there was one value in the middle, then you just take that one value to be your median. But in this case, because we've got two values, we added them, we divide by 2, and then we get our one value of the median. And then we've got what we call the mean. What is the mean? It is the sum of all the values divided by the total number of values. When I talk about sum, I am talking about addition. So let's calculate the mean for this data. It would be 10 plus 13 plus 25 plus 27 plus 29 plus 31 plus 31 plus 33 plus 33 plus 33 divided by, how many values are there? I counted them already and I said I had 10 values. Guys, do you see how I write this? This is how you must write this in the exam, because for this step, for showing that you've added them, there's a mark. For showing the division by 10, there's also a mark. And then you use your reliable calculator to do the addition. 10 plus 13 plus 25 plus 27. I hope you guys are also working it out there, because I might make a mistake, so that you guys can get the correct value. Plus 29 plus 31 plus 31 plus 33 plus 33 plus 33. You do this, guys, you get 265 in the exam tomorrow. Punch it again, second time, and see if you get the same value. I'm saying this so that you don't make mistakes. It's so sad seeing that this person was on the right track, but they made a mistake on the calculator. Then it affects everything. So it means our mean for this one is 26,5. Guys, I'm just reminding you, I know you were taught this stuff, you know it. And then, guys, our data can also be summarized using the measures of spread. When we talk about the measures of spread, we are talking range, we are talking quartiles. And then when we talk about the range, guys, what is the explanation of the range? It is the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value. Remember, in Maths Lit, when we talk difference, we are actually talking what? Subtraction. That is what we mean by the difference. So we've got our data set. I've already arranged it, so we are happy. How many values do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if we wanted to calculate the range, our range is the maximum value. The maximum value in this case is what? It is 81 minus the minimum value. The minimum value is 63. So the answer, guys, when you calculate the range, always rewrite the formula. There's a special mark somewhere for you for writing the correct range formula. So we'll say 81 minus 63. The answer is 18, meaning that our range is 18. And then when it comes to our quartiles, they divide our data sets into 4 equal parts. We've got quartile 1, which is the first 25%. Quartile 2 is also known as the median, the middle value. And then quartile 3 is the lower 75%. So we've got those 3 quartiles. So if we have to calculate the quartiles, guys, your starting point with the quartiles, it is always your Q2. Your Q2 is also your median. I said how many values do I have here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So if I've got 9 values, meaning this is my middle value. So since this is my middle value, meaning this is my Q2. So I'm going to write there that my Q2 is equals to 72. And now that I've used this one, it's gone. To find my Q1, I must now focus on this part. So I want the median of this part. So for Q1, I've got 2 values in the middle. So if I've got 2 values in the middle, I'm going to take both of them to say 64 plus 64, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So we'll say 64 plus 64, and then we divide it by 2 to get our answer. Our answer is still 64. So it means our Q2, our Q1 is somewhere there, 64. So to find my Q3, I'm going to focus on this last 4 values. I'm not going to include the 72 because I've used 72. So the middle, I've got two parts in the middle here. So to find my Q3, for Q3, I'm going to say it is the two values in the middle, 77 plus 81 divided by 2. Then you'll say 77 plus 81, and then it is divided by 2. Let me just divide already. Divided by 2, the answer is 79. So 79 is my Q3. So if I were to calculate the interquartile range, guys, don't forget this, it's interquartile range. The examiner can ask, what does the acronym interquartile range stand for? IQR stand for. You must know that it is the interquartile range. And the formula for the interquartile range, guys, it is Q3 minus Q1. I know it sounds like too much information, guys, but unfortunately, all these are going to be in your paper tomorrow. So your Q3, it is 79 minus your Q1, it is 64. Don't confuse the interquartile range with the range. When people are asked to calculate the range, the interquartile range, they always calculate the range, which is wrong, very wrong. Interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, whereas range is the maximum minus the minimum. So our interquartile range is 15, and then our range is 18. I hope you can see that those are two different things. Guys, you must also know your 5-number summary. When I'm talking about the 5-number summary, I'm actually talking about the box and whisker. That is your maximum point, your Q1, your Q2, your Q3, and your minimum. Well, actually here it was supposed to be minimum, and then this one would be your maximum. So from your data set, from our data set, this is our minimum value, 63. And then our Q1 is what? It's 64. Our Q2 is what? It is 72. Our Q3, what is our Q3? We've calculated it, it is 79. And then finally, what is our maximum value? It is 81. So when the examiner asks you for 5-number summary, you must know they want the minimum value, they want the Q1, Q2, Q3, and then the maximum value. That is what we are referring to when you talk about the 5-number summary. And then, guys, we have to find the interquartile range of the following. Sometimes the question will just come like this. They say, find the interquartile range. Your starting point, always, you will always start with your Q2. But before you can go to your Q2, you check, is my data arranged? Let's look at our data. Yes, our data is arranged. Let's check how many values we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 values. So if it's 10 values, our values in the middle, it is 70 and 72. So to get our median, we'll say 17 plus 72 divided by 2, which is equals to 71. Guys, I want you to be very careful here. Your Q2, it is 71. It is between these two values. 70 is not your Q2, 72 is not your Q2, but your Q2 is what? Is 71. So if you're going to now calculate your Q1, you must now include this 70 because it is not your median. Therefore, now you must include it. So to find our Q1, we are going to say, look at these values, including the 70. The middle value is what? Is 64. So to say Q1 is equals to 64. And then to find our Q3, we are still going to include this 72. This 72 must be included. And when we include it now, our middle value now becomes what? 77, meaning that now our Q3 is equals to 77. So if you want the interquartile range formula, we say IQR is equals to, you must know this formula by heart, guys, Q3 minus Q1. What is the value of Q3? It is 77. What is the value of Q1? It is 64. So if you want the value of the interquartile range, we say 77 minus 60, 64. And the answer that we are getting there, it is 13. I hope, guys, I've reminded you on how to calculate your interquartile range, because this is definitely, I can never picture or imagine a paper 1 without a question that requires you to calculate the quartiles or calculate the interquartile range. Sometimes they can ask you to calculate Q1, sometimes they can say calculate Q3 or Q2. Remember, you always start with your Q2 because your Q2 is your median. And then now, once we've summarized our data, we can now represent our data. We represent our data using graphs and using the box and whisker plot. Guys, this diagram is called a box and whisker plot. June supplementary exam, people were given this diagram and they were asked to name the diagram. What is the name of the diagram? People didn't know this. Please don't embarrass us. This is a box and whisker plot. So a box and whisker plot, like I said, it actually summary gives us the 5-number summary. This value here, it is the minimum value, and then right here you've got your Q1. This line here, it is your Q2 or your median. It's also your median. Let me write it, because sometimes the examiner can say, what is the median? So you must know that the median is 110. And then this one here, it is your Q3. And finally here, you've got your maximum value. So you can be given a box and whisker. You will never ever be asked to draw a box and whisker. The box and whisker plot will be drawn. Yours is just to interpret it. So it will be given to you. You must be able to interpret it. From the box and whisker, they can ask you, what is quartile 1? You must know that quartile 1 here is 80. They can ask you, what is the median or what is quartile 2? You must know that median quartile 2, it is 110. They can ask you, what is the maximum point? You must know that the maximum is 140. The minimum is 60. From here, they can ask you to calculate the interquartile range. You must know that interquartile range, it is what? Q3 minus Q1. They can ask you to calculate the range. You must know that for range is what? It is maximum minus your minimum. Don't get these two confused. They are not the same, totally different items. So you must be awake tomorrow. Another graph, guys, that you can find in the exam, it's a pie chart. Again, you will never be asked to draw a pie chart. A pie chart will be drawn to you. Yours is just to read information based on the pie chart that is given to you. The nicest thing about the pie chart that you guys must know is that with the pie chart in Mathlet, we're working out of 100%, not 360, out of 100%. So every part, every portion here, it represents in the total of this portion is 100%. So all these parts, all these provinces, when you add them together, they must give you a total of 100%. So what the examiner does normally, they give you this pie chart, and then maybe for Gauteng, they remove this 15% and they say, find the missing value for Gauteng, or find the percentage for Gauteng. When you must know that, okay, I'm going to say 100% minus all the values. Okay, let me just say minus 1% from Free State, minus 10% from KwaZulu-Natal, minus 14% from the Eastern Cape, minus 60% from the Western Cape. And then the total that you get, it will give you the balance, the total for Gauteng. Okay, let's do it quickly. I said it's 100 minus 1 minus 10 minus 14 minus 16. And then it gives us what? 15%, meaning that for Gauteng, the answer will be 15%. You will not be asked to draw a pie chart. It will be given to you, and then you will be asked questions based on the pie chart. They can ask you which province has the highest or the greatest percentage. It is what it is then, the Western Cape. And then, guys, you must know a line graph. Most of you, when you're asked to draw a line graph, you just do the points. You just do the points and you leave it there. A line graph, you do your points and then, but at the end, your points must join. So be very, very careful, guys, when you're asked to draw a line graph. Paper 1, we do have graphs, so you might be expected to draw a graph. And then we've got a vertical bar graph. This is a bar graph, guys, because of the spaces in between. You see there are spaces in between here. That makes this graph to be a bar graph, and it's a vertical bar graph. Because of the spaces in between, it makes it a bar graph. And then we also have a horizontal bar graph. What makes it a bar graph again, guys? The spaces here, the spaces in between. So it's actually a compound, but even if you just say bar graph, it's still okay. You will not be marked wrong. So you must know the shapes of your graphs. And then don't panic a lot. What I've noticed again now is that most of the times, the examiners, when you're expected to draw a graph, they will start it for you and maybe draw a bar in the middle, and then they expect you to continue drawing. It's like it's giving you a clue, the type of graph that they want. Don't be like your brothers and sisters. They see that they must draw this bar graph and then they extend it with a line graph. That is embarrassing, guys. Please don't do that to us. And then here we've got a vertical stacked. It's stacked. It's called stack because it is one stacked on top of the other. So you must know this graph. You must know how to interpret it, guys. The gray part represents the day, the 14th of May. Let's look at this one because it's clear. It's at 5,000. This does not mean that on the 14th of May, the cases were 5,000. No, the 14th of May is just from this part up to this part. So if you want to know the cases for the 14th of May, you will take this 5,000. This part here is actually 4,000. So if you want to know the amount for this gray part, you will say 5,000 minus 4,000, which is equals to 1,000 cases. Meaning on the 14th, there was actually 1,000 cases that were reported. So this is how a stacked graph works. Go and revise this. I know you have this in your classwork books. You even have this in your Mind the Gap textbook. It has all the graphs. Go and look at it. All of us have the Mind the Gap as not just as a province, as a country. And then there is a compound bar graph. I spoke about this one at the beginning. And then, yay, the biggest nightmare. People don't know this graph, guys. This graph, where there are no spaces in between, it is called a histogram. And normally we represent continuous data on a histogram. You'll see it's always in intervals. That's the type of data that we represent on a histogram. And then you must know your scatter plot, guys. Your scatter plot, now this is the one that with just the points on it. If you look at the scatter plot, the examiner can ask you what type of correlation is this. You see, this is forming an increasing straight line. Because it forms an increasing straight line, this one will say that it has a positive correlation. Guys, the examiner can ask you tomorrow. But this one, it is a decreasing straight line. Do you see the pattern that it forms? It forms a decreasing straight line. So if it goes towards this direction, it is said to have what? It has a negative correlation. And then this one, where the dots are just all over the place, there is no direction. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it going up? We don't know what's going on. So for this one, because all of us are confused, we say here there is no correlation. No correlation. And then, guys, you must also be able to identify the trend. Normally, they will give you a graph or a table of a set of data over the years. Maybe they give you the metric results of Maths Lit learners for 2019, 2020, and 2021. And they ask you to describe the trend. Guys, when they ask you about the trend, they just want two things for you. You must mention it's either there was an increase in the results or a decrease. That's what we are looking for, increase or decrease. And then you must also mention the time period. or what, or over the years. So you must mention what's going on over the years. You can say from 2019 to 2020, the results increased. And then from 2020 to 21, the results decreased. That is how you answer a trend question. It's normally for 4 marks. So you'll get a mark for increase and 2019. You'll get a mark for decrease and 2020. So you mention the increase or decrease. You also mention the years, for which year there was an increase, for which year there was a decrease. If there was an increase all throughout, you'll mention 2019, 2020 increase, 2020, 2021 increase again. You get your 4 marks. And then also avoid these common mistakes, guys. Always read your headings in each graph, the graph that is given to you. Always study the heading to know what the graph is about. And then, guys, when you calculate your median and your quartiles, always make sure that your data is arranged. That's the most important thing. And then, guys, when you calculate the interquartile range, you follow the same procedure. Even if your values are negative, you work with the negative values. Guys, and the other mistake that I saw in your junior exam, if maybe you were supposed to calculate the difference, maybe you say 300 minus, and the value that you are subtracting is negative, maybe it's minus 200, minus 200. Most of you panic. Write it as it is, punch it as it is on your calculator. You will get the correct answer. You say 300 minus another minus 200. You will get the answer. The answer is what the answer is 500. Don't panic when you're working with negative numbers. You've got a calculator. Punch it in as it is. And then when you're asked to calculate interquartile range, please calculate the interquartile range, not the range. There's a big difference between the range and the interquartile range. And then I'm not multiplying the values by the given value in the heading. Normally you'll be given a table and then they give you the values in the table. Let's say it's 300 here, here it's 250. And then inside the brackets, they say this is in millions. So you must know that when they say in millions, it means this 250, it actually means 250 million. This 300, it actually implies what? 300 million. So you must know how to deal with this, the big numbers. Read the headings of your tables. Read them. Whatever question that is asked, always refer to the heading. And then, guys, there are just some probability, guys. We have a probability scale. Make sure that you know the probability scale. If the chances of something not happening are not there, it means it is impossible. If it's impossible, it means it's what is 0. There is no way. That will never ever happen. And then if it is unlikely means it can happen, but the chances are very slim. The chances of you skipping your maths lit paper tomorrow, very slim, very slim. And then equally unlikely means there's a 50-50 chance. It can happen, it might not happen. And then likely, it will happen. There are high chances that it will happen, but it is not 100%. The chances of you guys sitting for your maths lit paper tomorrow, very high, but it is not 100% because anything can happen. And when you talk about certain, we're talking about 100%. Even one means definitely. It will definitely happen. In probability, when you see 1, it means definitely it will happen. Tomorrow on the timetable is mathematical literacy. Whether you show up or not, but mathematical literacy will definitely be written tomorrow. And then I've developed some possible questions from the exam, guys, but I want to skip it. I want to do a quick reminder with you on a tariff question, a tax question, and also on a interest question. Just quickly, before I let you guys go, there's some nice questions that I've prepared here for you guys. Hopefully we'll be able to do them as we prepare for the final exams. So here is the question. Marius, who is 66 years old, and an annual taxable income. When you see annual taxable income, you say yes, because you don't have to do anything. The amount is already annual, and they're telling us that it is a taxable income of 551,762 for the 2019-2020 tax year. Marius pays medical aid for himself, his wife, and 2 children. The table below alongside shows the tax table for the 2019-2020 tax year. Guys, here is our table. This, we've got the tax bracket on this side, and here it is the taxable income, and we are already given the taxable income. We have it. There is our taxable income. So it means when we calculate tax, we are going to use this taxable income to decide on which tax bracket to use. So what is our question now? We must identify the tax bracket that Marius falls in based on his taxable income. His taxable income is 551,762. So on the tax bracket, 551, I find it here in this tax bracket, meaning that he's in tax bracket number 1, guys. Number what? Number 4. Absolutely correct. So our answer would be bracket number 4. That is the tax bracket that Marius falls in. Calculate the tax rebates that Marius will qualify for. How old is Marius again, guys? Marius is 6 years old. So for a primary rebate, I said all of us, we qualify for primary rebate. So it will be 14,220 because he's 66, meaning that he is 65 and older. He is above 65 actually. He qualifies for an additional 7,794. You take out your calculator. He doesn't qualify for the third one because he's still younger than 75. So we say 14,220 plus 7,794. We get the answer of how much? Of 22,014. So this is the rebate. This is the discount that Marius will receive after we calculate his tax. Determine Marius' annual medical aid tax credits. They said that he pays for medical aid, so he pays for himself, his wife, and his 2 children. So when we calculate, we are going to use this table. But also remember and note that this table is per month, and the question wants what it wants there? The annual. Let's calculate the cost for medical aid. We said it's him, it's a wife, it's child 1, it is child 2. And then sometimes, guys, sometimes Marius will not be having a wife. It will just be Marius and his 2 children. So this first dependent, sometimes it can be a child. It's not always going to be the wife for the first dependent. Let's do the substitution now. For the main member, he gets a discount of 310. Plus for the wife, there's a 310. And then each additional dependent is the first child is 209. And then the second child will also get 209. And then we are going to add the values together, guys, to say 310 plus 310 plus 209 plus 209. You add the 3 values, we are going to get 1,038. But remember, this 1,038 is monthly. And we want what? We want the annual amount, because in taxation, we only work with annual amounts. So to convert this to annual, we are going to multiply by 12. So when you multiply this by 12, I got the answer of 12,456. I hope you guys are getting the same answer. You just punch in your calculator to say 1,038 multiplied by 12 is equals to 12,456. And then now we must calculate the annual tax payable by Marius. Remember, we said Marius is in tax bracket number what? Number 4. So we are going to calculate the tax that he must pay. We are going to say 100. We rewrite the formula, guys. 263 plus 36% of I'm going to open the bracket. My taxable income is 551,762 minus, it's always going to be minus this amount, 423,300. And then we punch this, guys. Remember, off means what? It means we multiply. So because of time, I'm just going to punch in everything on my calculator. 263 plus 36% multiply by, open bracket, 551,762 minus 423,300, and then close the bracket. I'm getting 146,509 and 32 cents. This is the tax that Marius will pay. But remember, there is that special discount that we call rebates that must be given to all the taxpayers. So after this, you must say minus rebates, and then minus medical aid, because medical aid is also a special discount for taxpayers. So I will then say 146,509.32 minus, remember we calculated our rebate in the previous slide and it was 22,014. The medical aid, we also calculated it. It was 12,450.56. So this minus 22,014 minus 12,456. The answer that I'm getting is 112,039 and 32 cents. So this is the amount of tax that Marius is going to pay. I want to show you something else, guys. Sometimes the examiner can say, look at this value, this 207,448. The examiner can ask you to show how that value was determined. So what you do here, you will do the reverse method. You come to this same block and then you take this value, the 708,310, and then you move back. It's the reverse. Because you move back, you minus what? The 555,600. This 555,000. And then you get the answer. You say 708,310 minus 123,600. You get 152,710. And then after subtracting, there is this off. Off means what? It means multiply. And then you multiply by what? By 36%. So it's multiplied by 36%. So that amount multiplied by 36%, you get the answer. The answer is 54975,6. And then after multiplying by 36%, there is plus. You must plus. And what are you plussing? You are plussing this 100,263. 100,263. Let's see what is the answer that we are getting. Plus 100,263. The answer that I'm getting, it is 155. Okay, I think I made a mistake. Oh, I used the wrong percentage there. I'm sorry. I was not supposed to use the bracket of 36, but I was supposed to use this bracket here of 39. So from here, let me take it from here with this answer. I'm sorry about the untidiness. It is the 152,710. We multiply by the 39%, not the 36, because we are in this block here, by the 39%. So it is 152,710 multiplied by 39%. And then the answer that I'm getting, it is 59,556,9. And then after getting this value now, I'm going to plus now. I'm going to plus what? I'm going to plus this 147. So we say plus 147,891 plus 147. I hope you guys are following. 891. And then the answer that I'm getting on my calculator here 207,447,9. So when you round it up, it actually gives you this 207,448. That is how you find that value, how this value was calculated. I want to check in the previous slide. Sorry, I wanted a cleaner table so that I can show you the second time how we the other values, how we determine them. Let's say I was looking for, the examiner wants you to show how this value, this one is calculated. So you are going to take this one, it is 305,850, and then you go back, it's reverse, you minus 195,850. Let's put in a bracket. After minusing this, there is off. Off means what? Multiply. You multiply by what? By 26%. And then after multiplying by 26%, you add. What are you adding? You are adding 35,250.53. And the answer that you get, it must give you 63,853. So that is how you determine a value. This is when they ask you how a value was calculated. And then guys, we've calculated the annual tax that is payable. And then here is a quick reminder of the tariffs. We've got a person, they say Susan used 38 kiloliters of water. The table alongside shows the residential water tariffs excluding VAT. So tariffs are always exclusive of VAT. When you get a tariff table tomorrow, be very careful that the amount that is given to you here, it must be in rands, because sometimes it can be in cents. So when it's given to you in cents, you must know how to convert it. You must convert it to rands, because our currency is not cents, but rather it is in rands. So how do you convert from cents to rands? From cents to rands, you are always going to divide by 100. And if it is the opposite, if you are converting from rands to cents, you are going to multiply by 100. So our common factor there is what? It's 100. So when you break down the tariffs, before you can actually calculate them, you use the same method for both water and electricity. So you start with block 1. They say is between 0 and 6. So you need to establish how many kiloliters are covered there. From 0 to 6 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, meaning that we've got 6 kiloliters. So in this block then, we've got 6 kiloliters. And then the second block, to establish how many kiloliters, you only focus on these values, guys. Don't look at these ones. Don't look at these ones. So you're going to say 20 minus the 6 on top. 20 minus 6 gives you what? It gives you 14 kiloliters. And then for the next block, you're going to say 40 minus 20. It will give you what? 20 kiloliters. And then 60 minus 40, it will give you 20 kiloliters. And then anything more than 60 will then be accommodated in this particular block. If you want to check if you are on the right track, it is 20 plus 20 is 40. 40 plus 14 is 54. 54 plus 6, it is 60, which is correct because this ends at 60. Now, let us calculate the cost for Susan for using 38 kiloliters. So the first block for Susan, it only covers for what? For 6 kiloliters. So we'll then say the first 6 kiloliter, what is the cost then? It is 6 rand 65 cents, 6 rand 65. And then she had 38 kiloliters. Let me write it here. She had 38 kiloliters. From this 38, we've subtracted 6. How much are we left with? We are left with 32 kiloliters. But the second block can only accommodate 14, not 32. So we are going to write it down to say 14 kiloliters multiplied by, what is the cost then? 28 rand and 24 cents. So this is multiplied by 28 rands and 24 cents. And then the third, and then how much are we left with now? We say this minus 14. What are we left with? We say 32 minus 14. We are left with 18 kiloliters. And the third block can accommodate up to 20 kiloliters. So our 18 kiloliters can actually fit in there. So we say 18 kiloliters multiplied by what? By 31 rand. 31 rand and 79 cents. So what you do, guys, you check here. You check your number of kiloliters. Is 6 plus 14 is 20. 20 plus 18, it gives you what? 38 kiloliters, which is correct because really we want the cost for using 38 kiloliters. Now let's calculate the amount. It will be 6 multiplied by 6 rand 65 cents. It's equals to 39 rand 19. And then we've got 14 multiplied by 28 rand 24. It is 395 and 36 cents. And then we've got 18 multiplied by 31 rand 79 cents. We've got 572 and 22 cents. Now we want the grand total for 18 kiloliters. Is this 572 plus the 395 and 36 plus the 39 rand 90 cents. So the grand total here, I hope I'm correct, guys. I'm getting 1,007 and 48 cents. But remember, this value is exclusive of VAT. So if you want the VAT inclusive amount, we are going to multiply first by 15% to get the VAT amount. So multiply by 15%. The VAT amount that I'm getting, it is 151 and 12 cents. So the total now, including VAT, would be 1,007.48 plus 151 and 12 cents. So plus 1,007.48. The answer is 1,158 and 60 cents. So guys, please go and revise this. Your water tariffs, we do them the same way that we do our electricity tariffs. Know your VAT, how to calculate your VAT. Go and revise. I also prepared interest for you, but unfortunately because of time, I cannot continue with it. Go and practice your simple interest. Go and practice your compound interest. Remember, you are not allowed to use a formula to calculate those. But I think we've covered enough for this afternoon. I really wish you all the best for tomorrow's paper, guys. I hope it's a good one. I hope you enjoy it. Do join us again tomorrow, same time, as we'll be doing paper 2, since you guys are sitting for your paper 2 on Monday. All the best. Thank you.